Good morning, everyone. This is Karma Lichty-Bauman with Onward Studios. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I always appreciate each of you taking time out of our busy schedules to join me on these Friday morning webinars. And this morning we're going to cover, one sec here. I had listening to my other laptop to make sure the audio was working. It was working, and I was hearing myself about like a 10-second delay, so it's quite confusing. Anyway, thank you for joining us. We're going to be talking about WordPress plugins this morning. And WordPress plugins is one of the reasons why I love WordPress. But before we get into that, just a bit about myself. I've been using WordPress for, I think, probably 10 plus years. I was originally, when I started into web design, I was HTML, CSS, actual coding. I do come from a programming background, so HTML, CSS wasn't too difficult to pick up. Then I used Dreamweaver quite a bit, and after several years of using that, actually a number of years, WordPress was introduced, was out there. I didn't get on the bandwagon right away. It took me a little while, but as WordPress became more fully developed and a fuller package, I realized this is where I want to be. The reason I really love WordPress is because you can add functionality easily to it, and my clients can also update their own website with WordPress. So I'm a huge fan of WordPress, and the reasons I do these webinars is to give back to the community. I learned a lot about WordPress on the internet, different tutorials, different articles, etc., and this is my way of giving back to that. So again, thank you for joining us, and let's go ahead and get into our content this morning, which is about WordPress plugins. If you're joining us, I don't have a chat box necessarily set up, but below on that page that you're on is a form. You can simply type in any comments or questions you have in that form, submit, and I will see that up here at my end. I will be checking that as I go through the content of this webinar. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. You should see my screen pop up there. Today we're going to talk about plugins. And this is more of a like a high-level presentation more this morning. I'll be also going into WordPress a little bit, but very high-level view of plugins. In the next few weeks or the next couple times I do these webinars for WordPress, I'll dig deeper into the plugins, and my goal is to actually show you in setting up plugins and the plugins that I will use on most of my sites that I set up for clients. So we're going to start with the purpose of plugins, defining what that is. Why do we care about plugins? Where do we find plugins? There's one main source that will probably find most of our plugins if we're into the free versions, but there's also some other options out there, which I will review with you. We'll talk about managing plugins and what do we do with plugins that maybe we once used and don't use anymore, how to install, how to delete, how to deactivate plugins. We'll go through those steps and actually show you those steps inside WordPress. And then we're going to cover, this is probably the meat of the webinar this morning, is we're going to cover what I call essential functionalities of plugins. So what I consider the functionalities that you need to add to the WordPress core, if you will, to make your site fully functional and secure. And then we'll actually go through a list of plugins that I recommend to cover those essential functionalities. All right, if you're having trouble with audio or you're not seeing the video, go ahead and refresh your page. This is a Google Hangout. Sometimes there's a delay there, so go ahead and refresh your page and see if that will take care of it. Let's go into purpose of plugins. A plugin is simply a piece of software that plugs in to your WordPress website. That's the beauty of WordPress, and that's the beauty of plugins. Instead of having to know code or to spend hours and hours developing something new, you simply go out there, search for a plugin that does what you need to be done, and you simply install it and activate it. set its parameters, and you're set to go. So what used to take hours and hours and maybe days or weeks, you now simply can do in a few minutes. So plugins are wonderful. And there's usually a plugin out there to almost do any kind of functionality anymore. There's thousands and thousands of plugins available. A plugin will extend the functionality of WordPress. So let's say clients want to start building an email list. You can find plugins that will allow you to do that. Say you want to have different kinds of forms on your website. A plugin will allow you to do that. It lets you add new features to WordPress. Again, kind of going back to some examples I just mentioned as well. And it makes it easy to add these new features or add these functionalities to WordPress. Simply install the plugin, set its parameters, and you're good to go. There are two different types of plugins, if you will. There are free plugins, and there's thousands of free ones out there that will do a great job for you. But there's also premium plugins. These are maybe a little more complex plugins, maybe a little more functionality built into them. And so there's a charge for them. They can be anywhere from, they can be cheap, $5 up to $100+ per year. So it really varies across the board. Where to find plugins? You'll find most of your plugins right inside from your WordPress dashboard, and I will show this to you in just a second. These are all the free plugins that are in the WordPress, what I call the WordPress plugin repository. The thing that I like about pulling plugins from this repository is I can tell how often they've been used. I can tell how viewers or users feel about these plugins. There's a rating system involved, and these users will rate the plugin. I can tell how much the support is the active support on the plugin, if the developer is supporting the plugin, if he's answering questions that users are putting out there in the forum. I can also tell when it's been last updated. I'm going to jump really quick to that so you can see this. This is the plugin repository. Simply go to wordpress.org and then choose plugins from the main menu, and there's lots and lots of plugins, as you can see here, 46,000 plus plugins at this repository. And I'll go through in a little bit how to kind of search for plugins. There's an option, if you already know the name of a plugin, you can plug that in here. And this is the same section. If you go to your WordPress dashboard, which I now show on my screen, and go to your plugins and click on the option to add new, the same plugins are available here. So this is simply going out via your WordPress dashboard to the same location that we see when I go to wordpress.org/plugins. So this is probably the main area you go to find plugins. These are all free plugins. If you want premium plugins, there's a couple ways I would suggest doing this. Google search for recommended WordPress plugins. I would include their recommended WordPress plugins for email list, for forms. So you're defining what type of functionality or what type of feature you want to add to your website. And I always like putting recommended in front of that so I can get some articles. Usually articles will come up, and I like to get like 3 to 4 articles where people have reviewed plugins for a specific purpose. And then if the same plugin shows on several times in those different articles, I'm interested. There are 2 other websites that I have here that can also get plugins. ProPluginDirectory.com, those are premium plugins. So this is a repository of plugins that you pay for. Then there's WPPluginDirectory.org. And this is just another location to find plugins. I'm going to visit both of those sites here and kind of show you each of those sites. Here's a Pro Plugin Directory. So these are premium plugins. And they have it broken down by categories, functionality, what the plugins will do, etc. So you can go there. And I believe also, let me click on one of these here. You can also get ratings on this plugin. Let's see if they do that. Yeah, so it includes ratings and just more information about each plugin. So that's Pro Plugin Directory. Now these are paid for plugins also, although I do know this, I think they have a free version of this one as well. And then the WP Plugin Directory. I'm not sure how long this has been out here, but this is another attempt to make a repository, or at least a site where you can search for plugins. Again, they divide it by functionality. This is something that you don't have on the WordPress.org repository. It's just list all the plugins, but some of these other options give you ways to search for plugins by functionality. And this will also include, let me drill down here a little bit. They also include some rating and information about each plugin. Yeah, so they have a rating. They have how many have rated it, when was it last updated, and how often it's been downloaded. And I like to glance at those numbers just to make sure it's being used out there, what people have thought about it. I forgot to show you, if I go back to the WordPress org page, they have the same information here. And I like it. If I notice it's 300,000 plus active installs, bbPress is very popular. It's a well-known backup option. I know that this is being used out there a lot, so I know there's probably a good community and a good forum to get any questions I might have answered. So those are just numbers to look at as I'm determining which plugin to use. So those are the two other sites you can go to find plugin, or you can just Google it as well. So that's where you find plugins. Let's talk about how to manage plugins. We're going to talk about installing a plugin, and we're going to do it. There's two different ways to install a plugin. If you're going for a plugin that's in the WordPress.org repository, which are the plugins available through your WordPress dashboard, you simply click a few buttons and install it. If you're going with a plugin outside of the WordPress repository, so maybe you got it on a different site or a third-party site, you'll have to download the zip file and then install it. You also have to activate the plugin after installing. I'm going to demonstrate this really quick. So I'm on just a training site that's just for kind of a playground. And I'm going to look for a plugin called Back WP Up, which I'll be talking more about after a bit. So here's the plugin. This is the one that I want. I'm going to click on Install Now. It will go out there, find that plugin, download it. It will install it. Now, install simply means it's going to make it available to this WordPress website. It doesn't mean it's live and activated. That's the next step. After you install it, if you're ready to use it right away, you simply click on Activate Plugin. And now it's being used by this website. And this plugin does add an item to my WordPress dashboard that can go inside the menu item that it added to make use of this plugin. So that's how easy it is to install a plugin. So install it and then activate it. If you're installing a plugin from a third party, again, I'm going to Plugins, Add New. I'll click this option to upload plugin. I'll click on the Choose File. So before I do this step, I would have downloaded the plugin from somewhere else. That somewhere else will give me a zip file. I'll click on Choose File, navigate to that zip file that's on my computer or network drive at this point. I'm not going to do this actually. And then we will then install that. And from this point on, it's the same as installing it like we did the first one. It will be installed, and then you will activate the plugin so it can be used by this site. Yeah, there's a question about any issues with installing plugins. You know, I've been doing this for years, and I can think of it one, maybe twice, where I have issues with installing a plugin. It just wouldn't install properly. I think one time I was able to resolve it. I think I had partially installed, and then I'm not sure what happened, but things got confused. So I had to actually go into the back end and delete that directory. What happens when you install a plugin is it creates a directory inside your WordPress installation files. There's actually a plugins directory. Then inside each of there's a directory for each plugin. I just deleted that directory for that plugin that I was trying to install, and then I reinstalled, and it did work okay. But I think there was another instance where I was not able to resolve it, so I just had to find an alternative plugin to make it work. Okay, so that's how we install and activate a plugin. And you're, as we discussed, you have to activate the plugins, which suggests we can also have plugins that are not activated. I'm going to go back to this site to show you my installed plugins. And you'll notice here, everything that has a blue shade on it. I'm not sure if you can see that through the video. Those are active plugins. Those that don't have the solid blue line on the left, or don't have the light blue shade behind it, those are inactive plugins. So I've deactivated them, or have never activated them for some reason or other. I would suggest, though, that if you have plugins on your website that are not active, to go ahead and delete them. Now, this is a training site that I come in and use as a playground. So I have several plugins that are here that are not activated currently. On a real live site, I would delete those. Okay, and those it's easy to do. Let's go down to the one that we just activated, which was my backup one. I can simply click on deactivate. And that just cuts off the integration, if you will, of this plugin to this website. Let's talk about the next step, which is deleting plugins. Once a plugin is not active, you have the option to delete it. You can simply click on the delete option of the specific plugin that you want to delete, like so. I'll delete the one that we just installed. It's going to ask you, are you sure? We'll say yes, delete these files and data. And then we'll just clean that plugin, remove that plugin from this WordPress install. Now, I've seen some plugins, some plugins delete, but they're a little messy in their deletion, and they leave files, they leave tables in the WordPress database out there. So some clean up better than others, but that's how you delete a plugin. We won't get into more details with that at this point. That should be sufficient for the most part. In some future webinar, I'll talk about cleaning up our WordPress databases to clean up those items that plugins have left behind. Yeah, there's a question out there. If I delete a plugin, can I reinstall it? Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome to install, delete a plugin as many times as you want. Now usually you don't do that more than once or twice. But I've had situations where I needed a plugin for a period of time, then the client decided I don't want that functionality, or at least they thought they didn't. So we removed it, and some at later point, maybe it was a different person in the company now where they wanted that functionality back in, so I just reinstalled the plugin. And as far as it retaining information for a plugin from, if I delete it and install it the next time, it really depends on the plugin. Some plugins will, as I mentioned, will leave information out there, and if so, then when the plugin is reinstalled, it will grab that information and you're good to go. Others will do a better job of deleting information. You'll have to reset everything up if you reinstall it sometime in the future. All right, so we covered managing plugins, installing, activating, deactivating, excuse me, and then deleting. Now I'm going to cover what I call essential plugins. These are functionalities that I consider important for every WordPress website. So I'm going to talk about the functionality, why we need that functionality, and then in the next section of this webinar, I'm going to talk about recommended plugins for each of these essential functionalities. We're going to start with anti-spam, and that's probably the first one everybody notices. Let me get a drink real quick. An anti-spam plugin simply keeps your WordPress free, or not necessarily free, but at least at a reduced rate, the number of spam comments that come in. And some anti-spam plugins have other functionality built into them, such as tracking when there's an admin tries to log in. There's actually a combination of that with security plugins. But the main purpose of anti-spam plugins is to remove this, or to reduce the likelihood of getting spam comments. Another essential functionality is backing up your WordPress website. It's important to have the option to not only back up your WordPress files and your WordPress database, but also any other website files that you might be using that are out there that may not necessarily be WordPress. So you want to make sure that it's backing up database and all your files. Some plugins will do both of these. Other plugins will do one or the other. The next essential functionality is the use of forms. At the very minimum, you'll want some kind of contact form on your website. That allows viewers or visitors to your website to get in contact with you via a form. I prefer this method versus just putting my email address on the site. What this allows is, using a form allows the visitor to fill in their name, their email, their question, or their request for more information. When they click on the submit, then that sends me an email, or whoever I specify an email, with that inquiry, and then I can respond accordingly. And at that point, they will get my email. So the email becomes available once there's some kind of relationship happening. And a plugin that allows you to do forms not only allows you to do a contact form, but you might want information. I had a client who wanted information about more details about their clients or their website visitors. So they had a form that probably had 10 to 12 different questions, multiple choice options on their form. So it lets you, this type of plugin lets you add any type of form to your website. And again, plugins vary in their complexity. A very simple contact form plugin may be all that it does. Other types of plugins that handle forms will have the option to do any kind of form. Yeah, there's a question about there's some of the plugin forms are asking me about Gravity Form, and I will cover that in just a sec when I get to the next section. But yes, you're absolutely right. Gravity Form is a great plugin, and that is a premium plugin. Another essential functionality is social media. You want people, and there's two parts to this functionality. You want people to be able to easily share information on your website to their social networks, or email that to somebody they know that might be interested in it. So sharing information on your website, whether it's a page, whether it's a blog post, where they can easily email or do a quick post to their Facebook page, to their Twitter account, sharing information from your website to their contacts or their social network. The other type of plugin, and sometimes one social media plugin will do both of these options. The other type functionality for social media is you want visitors to be able to easily find you on your own social networks. So when I set up a website for a client, if that client has a Facebook page, if they have a Twitter account, if they're on Instagram, I want those icons to be on the website so visitors to that website can easily find these other social networks that this business is on or this organization is on. So it lets website visitors easily find you in your social networks. Another essential functionality for WordPress websites is an editor plugin. If you've been inside WordPress, you know the editor to add a page or edit your page or do blog posts is kind of limited. It's not too bad, but it is kind of limiting. If you bring in some plugins, it enhances the editor where you have more options or more more menu options or more icons that you may be familiar with via Microsoft Word to at the top of your editor. So it lets you easily format your content quicker and faster. You can find what I would call editor type plugins to do specific types of data. For example, to add tables. You can also find editor plugins that will allow you to edit your site from the front end. So instead of having to go to WP admin, sign in, you can just click on a button or an option when you go visit your website. And that lets you update your website after signing in. Yes, and we will be covering some of those options here in just a second, some of the plugins that will do that. The other type of essential functionality I consider that WordPress websites need is some kind of plugin that will speed up your website. These are often referred to as a caching plugin. And you may be aware that Google likes fast websites. If you have a slow website, you will be rated lower in search engine results. So having a fast website is important, and there's lots of variables that affect the speed of your website. But having a plugin that helps increase the speed of your website is one of those steps to do when you're looking at, excuse me, when you're looking at speeding up your website. Another type of a functional plugin that I see is needed on all websites is some kind of SEO plugin. This helps you customize the SEO information or the metadata information for each page and each blog post. You can set up your page title, your page description. You can set up what your keywords are. And many SEO plugins will also give you some kind of feedback of how your page will do based on the keyword that you provide, and will give you suggestions on how to improve SEO. So you can't go wrong. In fact, it's needed anymore. Some kind of SEO plugin to help that out. And sometimes this is built into a WordPress theme. There are times it requires you installing an SEO plugin. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There's a comment here about SEO can take a lot of time, and it certainly can. And I'll look at, in just a minute, I'll review a couple of plugins that you can use to do that, but still it will take some time to do that. And finally, secure plugins. These plugins add a level of security to your WordPress website, which you will want to do. WordPress is open source, and there's hackers out there that are going to try to get into your WordPress website. You want to do all you can to prevent that from happening, or the likelihood of that happening. And there's various ways to do this. Your web host is important, selecting the right web host that has some level of security. But you can also add plugins to your WordPress site that will also add a security level. And this just eliminates or reduces the chance of your site being hacked. And again, these WordPress plugins come from very simple to complex. It can add notices and send you emails. If somebody has tried signing in as an admin, it can block IP addresses for you. If somebody's tried signing in 20 times in the last 5 minutes, it will block that IP address. So there's some great WordPress plugins to add this level of security to your website. All right, so just in a quick review of what we covered the last 10 to 12 minutes, what I would consider the essential functionalities of a WordPress website that requires a plugin to add this functionality or feature to your site, some kind of anti-spam plugin, some kind of backup plugin, a plugin that will handle forms for you, a social media plugin, an editor plugin that will make it easier to edit the pages and post on our website, a plugin that will speed up the website. They're often referred to as cache plugins. Some kind of SEO plugin, and then finally a security plugin. Now in this next section, I'm going to actually go through different plugins I recommend for each of these essential functionalities. And my goal is not to add to the confusion, but to narrow down what I consider some of the best options for each of these essential functionalities. One of my, probably a pet peeve of mine, is going to an article that says the top 30 plugins for anti-spam. I'd rather look at a article that gives me the top 5. And that's my goal here, is to really narrow it down to what I consider the best plugins. Plugins that I have used or that I have seen highly recommended multiple times over a period of time. So I'm comfortable recommending it. But most of these I have actually used. So for the anti-spam plugins, first I would highly recommend using the default plugin that comes in with WordPress, which is the Akismet, and I have no idea how to say that. And it's a freebie unless you're using it for a commercial. I think it's only like $5 a year. So you have to have like an Akismet key to do that. So, and I highly recommend doing that. Then on top of that, I would add one of these other plugins. And I've used all of these actually. Gasp, The Grow Map anti-spam plugin is a good one. The anti-spam B comes highly recommended as well. And then WP Bruiser. Right now, I think I'm using WP Bruiser on my own site on top of Ask Us. There was something that came up several months ago where I was getting more spam suddenly. And so I knew I needed to add the layer of anti-spam in there. So I added WP Bruiser, and that seemed to help eliminate that spam, or at least reduce that spam significantly. For backup plugins, I am a huge fan of Back WP Up. I use the free version on most of my clients' sites as well. They also have a premium version that extends some of the capabilities of that plugin. Two other ones that come highly recommended. I have not used either of these. These are all premium options, but I see them recommended over and over again, and I'm comfortable recommending them to you as well. Backup Buddy and then WordPress. And all of these are, I believe, subscription-based, so there's an annual fee per year. For forms, I recommend Contact Form 7. The one little hang up I have with Contact Form 7 is it's a little techy. It's getting better. Actually, it has gotten better over the years, where it becomes easier to create your forms. But it's very, very popular out there. I have it on probably most of my client sites. And the neat thing about Contact Form 7 is there's add-on features that you can do. On one of my sites, they want to actually capture what the visitor fills in to the form. And so we put it into a little database or spreadsheet, if you will. Actually, it goes into the database, and then we can export it out as a spreadsheet if they want to download that information. So Contact Form is a good one. WP Forms is more recent to the market in this area. It's by WP Beginner, whom I highly recommend. They have a freebie version as well as a premium version. Gravity Forms I do highly recommend, especially if you're doing a lot with forms on your site, and if you need to do some what's called conditional processing. So if the user selects this, then you want to show these options for them to choose from. So if you have that type of processing that's needed, Gravity Forms handles that very well. There's another one out there, I think, called Ninja Forms, who will also do the same thing. I think Ninja Form also has free and premium. Any of those plugins, you cannot go wrong. For social media plugins, again, there's what I call two types of social media plugins, and some plugins will do both of these. You want visitors to your site to be easily share your content or your information. And you also want them to be able to find you on your social networks. So to share your content, SumoMe has come out very, very strong in the past year. They have a free version. They also have a premium option that gives you more functionality. Shareaholic is one that I use on a couple of websites. It allows others to easily share your content. Monarch is another plugin. It's a premium. If you're familiar with Elegant Themes, that's who develops Monarch. Elegant Themes you pay a fee, then you have access to all their themes and all their plugins. I think it's like $80 or something. It might be $80 a year, or just maybe a one-time fee. I forget. But I really like what Elegant Themes puts out, so I do highly recommend them. And then for the plugin that allows your visitors to easily find you on your social networks, Social Media Widget is a good one. And this is widget based, so you can put your widget either on your sidebar or your footer, depending on the theme that you're using. So that's one way to add those social media icons so your visitors can easily find you. Monarch will also do the same thing. And I think Shareaholic may also have that option built into that plugin. Yeah, I got a couple of comments about different other social media plugins that they use and are very complicated. And there are a lot out there. Again, I would just recommend Google searching these plugins, and you'll see a variety of these. It's probably social media plugins are probably one of the most can find the most plugins available for that functionality. For the editor, on all my client site, I installed Tiny MCE Advanced. What that does, it gives you more icons and more options across the top of my editing window, more similar to like what I see in Microsoft Word, or when I'm just doing word processing. There are a couple other plugins that allow you to add tables or columns. That's Table Press and Advanced WP Columns. There's also another plugin called it's actually called Front End Editor. It allows you to edit your page when you visit your website versus having to go through WordPress or the back end. Now, you still have to sign in and those kinds of things. There's security built into that, but it does allow you to do it from the front end, which can be advantageous. Then there's a couple what I would call editor plugins that are more drag and drop type plugins. The one that I use the most is called Page Builder by SiteOrigin, and it's a freebie. It has some drag and drop. I don't consider a true drag and drop, but what I like about SiteOrigin is if I decided to go back to the normal WordPress editor, I can do that without losing content. Whereas some of the other ones that have drag and drop functions, if you ever want to return to just the normal, using the normal editor on that page, you will lose your content. Page Builder by SiteOrigin does not do that. Visual Composer is another one that's used out there. It's actually found on Code Canyon, and it's a premium WordPress plugin. That one, I'm not sure if you can actually retain your content if you decide to ever go back to the normal editor, but it is used out there a whole lot. All right. The plugins I recommend for speeding up your website. Two of these I recommend probably on every list that I look at, and I've used both of them. I'm actually W3 Total Cache is a very good one. Although I had problems with it on one of my websites, and I never have really returned to it. And I forget what it was doing. I think I was using a Genesis theme, and it was messing something up. So then I used Super Cache, and it was fine. So just be aware. Once you install these and activate it, make sure your site is still working properly. And that was probably a couple years ago, so it's probably not an issue anymore at all. But those two come highly recommended. WP Rocket is a premium version, and as I was putting this together for this morning, I happened to come across an article where that one was highly recommended just after reading a couple other articles where they had mentioned WP Rocket. So I have not used it, but it is on a lot of lists when I look at recommended plugins for speeding up your WordPress website. For SEO, there are two common ones out there, Yoast SEO and All-in-One SEO. I've used both of them. These are free plugins, although they have premium options as well. And they let you do the things I'd mentioned earlier. They let you edit your page title, your page description, enter your keywords. They give you feedback on how your page or post does for that specific keyword or keywords or key phrase. For security, I'm a fan of WordFence. I've gone through a number of WordPress plugins, and right now I'm a fan of WordFence. I have WordFence installed on all my client sites and my sites as well. It's easy to set up. It's easy to set parameters in it. And that's kind of what I have found with some of these security type plugins is it can get complex really quickly. One of those I think is iTheme Security. Again, it's a very, very good plugin. I used it for a number of years on some of my sites, but it does require, it's a little more complex when you go to set it up. The other one I saw that I haven't used, but I saw it listed on a number of articles that I was researching when I looked for security plugins, and that's the All-in-One WP Security and Firewall. All right, I think that covers what I would call the essential functionalities for plugins as well as the recommended plugins. Any other questions out there? Let me just double check. Yeah, there's a question about will you be showing us how to use these plugins? And that is my goal. My goal is on all these essential functionalities, I want to actually show you a plugin that will meet the requirements for these essential functionalities, how to install it, how to set it up. So over the next several weeks, I will be doing that, or the next several webinars, I will be doing that. And if you have a certain plugins that you have questions about, or certain plugins or certain functionality that you would like to know recommended plugins that I did not cover in the essential functionalities section of this webinar, let me know. Just fill in that form below this video and let me know, and I'll try and cover that in the next few webinars. wanted to show you this article I came across just this week as I was thinking about this presentation. This is from Torque Mag. 11 of the best premium WordPress plugins worth their money. And this is this information is invaluable. I hesitate to pay for WordPress plugins unless I know I can't find a free one that meets my needs, and I'm more than happy to pay for a WordPress plugin. This is one that had WP Rocket recommended for speeding up your WordPress website. But what I like about this article, it includes in each of these paid plugins, it includes free alternatives. So like for anti-spam, it includes the premium version of Akismet. Actually, that's $5 a month, not $5 a year. And then some free alternatives. Anti-Spam B, which is one I recommended. WP Rocket, that includes the other two that I talked about, free versions I talked about for speeding up your website. And it also includes some functionality, plugins that do functionality I haven't covered. I am a fan of Managed WP. I use that a lot. So some other options there. So that's just an interesting article, and I'll include a link to that also. When I send out the recording, I'll include a link to this article. All right, if you have any other questions, make sure you send those in, because I'm going to be wrapping up here shortly. I want to go through just a summary of what we covered this morning, as well as some more resources and contact information. All right, so this morning in this plugins webinar, we covered the purpose of plugins, we covered where to find plugins, how to manage plugins. We covered what I call essential functionalities of plugins, and then the recommended plugins for each of those essential functionalities. If you're interested in more WordPress information, I have a free WordPress guide. It's 44 pages that starts with how to find a web host, how to install WordPress, how to set up your WordPress website, how to find a theme, how to find and install plugins, and much information I covered here is covered in that WordPress guide. It also looks at some other things that you'll need to set up your WordPress website. By the time you get done with this guide, you should have an operating live WordPress website. That is my goal. So you can find that at onwardstudios.com/WP guide. Again, I love feedback. Feel free to get a hold of me if you have any questions about what we covered this morning or any WordPress questions. My email is karma@onwardstudios.com. You can also visit my site, onwardstudios.com. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. Onward Studios without the A on both of those. ONWRD Studios is my Twitter name. You can find me at facebook.com/Onward Studios, again without the A. I also have a YouTube channel. I don't know how many videos are out there on the YouTube channel. Some are dated, probably 2 to 3 years old, but I've started adding again to that channel. So you can check out my Onward Studios channel on YouTube. And Onward Studios for YouTube is fully spelled out. Okay, that wraps up our Friday morning webinar for this week. Again, I do these on the first and second Friday of each month, starting at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. I live in the Denver, Colorado area. And if you're interested, I do the same thing for Photoshop on the third and fourth Friday, so you're welcome to join there. And if you're interested in that and have not signed up for either of these, visit my website and sign up for the free webinars, and I will send you more information on either of those webinars that I do. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in or comments. Again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I enjoy this. And again, don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. I like to create the content for these webinars to answer the questions that I'm getting from the audience. So I love comments, questions about different topics that you want covered. So don't hesitate to let me know. All right. Again, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. I certainly appreciate it. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you next time.